You've heard the name, right? The Bermuda Triangle. For decades, it was a household name, a patch of ocean that was just synonymous with the unexplained, planes, ships, people, just vanishing. So today we're going to dive in. What exactly was the Bermuda Triangle? And where did the world's greatest mystery even go?
Just let that sink in for a second. Those were the first words hinting that something was going horribly wrong. The date was December 5th, 1945. A totally routine training flight of 5 U.S. Navy bombers had just taken off from Florida. And that one radio call? Well, that was the spark that lit the fuse on a global legend.
And get this, it wasn't just those first 5 planes. A rescue aircraft sent to find them also disappeared. So let's do the math. That's 6 aircraft and 27 men, just gone. No wreckage, no life rafts, not even an oil slick. Seriously, how does that even happen? It's a question that has captivated people for generations.
So when you don't have any real answers, what happens? Well, a powerful myth takes hold. The story of Flight 19 wasn't just a tragedy. It became the cornerstone, the founding story of the Bermuda Triangle legend. And from there, the story just kept growing, pulling in countless other disappearances, each one adding another spooky layer to the mystery.
And the explanations people came up with? Oh, they were absolutely wild. We're talking about everything from alien abductions to weird energy fields from the lost city of Atlantis, time portals, bizarre magnetic fields that mess with your instruments, and even giant bubbles of methane gas erupting from the seafloor. It's the kind of stuff you just can't make up, right? It was tailor-made for our imaginations.
Okay, but to really get to the bottom of this whole legend, we gotta go back to where it all started, to that one single defining case. So what actually happened to Flight 19? Let's break down the official record from their final fateful hours.
Okay, so take a look at this timeline. This is where it all goes wrong. You can see how a series of small mistakes just snowball into a total disaster. At 3:45, the flight leader, a Lieutenant Taylor, is convinced his compasses are shot and he's over the Florida Keys. But here's the thing, he's not even close. He's way out east of Florida. And from that moment on, every single call he makes, turning north, then turning east, it just pushes his squadron further and further out into the open ocean, all while the weather's getting worse and the sun is going down.
250,000. What is that? Well, that's how many square miles of ocean the Navy and the Coast Guard searched for 5 solid days. You have hundreds of ships and planes covering this massive area, and they found zilch. Nothing. And that complete lack of any evidence, that's what really let this mystery take on a life of its own.
So for a long time, that's kind of where the story just stopped. It was a mystery, full stop. But then you got these investigators, these researchers, one guy in particular, a librarian of all people named Larry Cush, and they start actually digging into the official reports. They start pulling apart the real, documented facts from all the crazy stories, and, well, a totally different picture starts to take shape.
Okay, this slide right here, this is where the rubber meets the road. Let's just compare the legends side by side with what actually happened. The legend says you have these crack pilots, seasoned vets, who vanish in perfect weather. The reality? No. It was a training flight, and they flew straight into a nasty worsening storm. The legend claims all their compasses just mysteriously failed at once. The reality? Only the leader's compass was confirmed to be broken. And what about that rescue plane that also mysteriously vanished? Well, that particular plane, the PBM Mariner, had a pretty grim nickname, the Flying Gas Tank. Why? Because they had a known risk of exploding from fuel vapor leaks. Not so mysterious now, is it?
So when you actually piece it all together, what you see isn't a supernatural event. It's a chain of very, very human and technical problems. You find out Lieutenant Taylor was new to flying in that area. He'd even asked to be taken off the flight that day. The student pilots with him, they probably knew something was wrong, but in the military, you don't really question your commanding officer. Plus, their planes didn't even have clocks, which were crucial for navigation back then, and their radios were cutting out. See? It wasn't a mystery, it was a tragedy born from disorientation and human error.
Okay, so Flight 19 has a pretty logical explanation when you look at the facts, but what about all the other stories? What about the triangle itself? What does science actually have to say about this spooky patch of ocean?
And this is really the most important question, right? Let's just forget the aliens and the time portals for a minute. Is this area actually more dangerous? Do more ships and planes really go down here than anywhere else in the world? And the answer from official sources like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is a big fat no. It's not. When you actually crunch the numbers, there is absolutely nothing statistically weird about the Bermuda Triangle. The accident rate is pretty much the same as any other busy stretch of ocean. So from a scientific point of view, there's really nothing to explain.
So you gotta ask, why the scary reputation then? Well, it turns out the area is kind of a perfect storm of just bad conditions. First off, it's a superhighway for boats and planes. More traffic just means more chances for accidents, right? Then you've got the Gulf Stream, this powerful current that can whip up violent weather out of nowhere. Oh, and it's also smack dab in the middle of Hurricane Alley. On top of all that, it's full of tricky, shallow waters. Honestly, you don't need ghosts or aliens when you've got Mother Nature throwing all that at you.
And then there's this, something called a rogue wave. For centuries, sailors told stories about them, but everyone thought they were just myths. But now, we have satellite proof. They are real, and they are terrifying. We're talking about a spontaneous vertical wall of water that can be 100 feet high. That's tall enough to just snap a huge ship in half. They're super rare, but they happened. And that gives us a completely natural explanation for how a giant ship could vanish in an instant without even time to send out an SOS.
Okay, so if the science is pretty clear, and the biggest mystery of all, Flight 19, is basically solved, then where did the Bermuda Triangle go? Why don't we hear about it all the time anymore? It's like the legend itself disappeared.
I saw this quote on Reddit, and I just think it's perfect. It really nails what the Bermuda Triangle has become for a lot of us, right? It's nostalgia. It feels like one of those things from when we were kids, like being scared of quicksand or those old UFO shows. It was this awesome, thrilling mystery that's just kind of faded away.
And you can almost see the recipe for how a mystery like this fades away. First, you get a sensational book back in 1974 that just blows the whole thing up and makes it a global phenomenon. Then the careful investigators come in and start poking holes in the stories. But the real knockout punch, that was technology. Think about it. GPS means it's really, really hard to get hopelessly lost anymore. Advanced sonar means we can find wrecks at the bottom of the ocean. And of course, the internet means you can fact-check some wild claim in about 5 seconds. All those unknown spaces where mysteries used to live, they've just gotten a whole lot smaller.
So in the end, the story of the Bermuda Triangle isn't really about lost planes and ships, is it? It's about us. It's about how we as a culture deal with the unknown. It's a perfect case study. A legend is born from a real tragedy, it's fueled by speculation, and then it's ultimately unraveled by research and technology. Which leaves us with one last question to chew on. What stories, what sensational, unexplained mysteries are capturing our imagination today that future generations might look back on as their Bermuda Triangle?